Well, good day to you. It is June the 9th, and I hope wherever you are doing really well. My name is Gary Willing. I want to welcome everyone to Search for Signs, and as I always like to do, just kind of plug a few websites that I provided links for in the description portion of these videos. Now, why do I do this? It is important, I think, to do some research for yourself after listening to me talk about Maitreya, especially if it's your first time. Okay, hearing about Maitreya, and not to take my word for it, but to take it a step further, investigate it for yourself, and then see if there's any truth to it. And I encourage everyone to do this. Now, if you don't do it, you don't do it. That's up to you. But I'm hoping, at least, that you do take the time to do it. And if you go to a site like the Share International site, you can get a lot of really good information about Maitreya, about his priorities. You can get a lot of really good background information about Maitreya and the Masters. You can see videos from Benjamin Creme, who was the spearhead for this information for decades, talking about Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. You can listen to lectures that he's given so you can get some more information that way and that kind of stuff. So that's why I always like to encourage everyone to do it. Now, if you want to come back and join the discussion, you're welcome to do that. Ask me a question or two. I don't care. I'd love it when people ask me questions. Post your question in the comments section, or you can email those questions to me at searchforsigns@mail.com. Or if you just want to let me know what you think, post a comment in the same way. All right. Now, let's see. I have a comment here. Lord Maitreya's return may be delayed by the ongoing wars since he works under the law of human free will, which makes it impossible for him to stop the wars. I think, well, first of all, he's already returned. And this is and I find myself saying it in that way too, James. So don't take this as any kind of criticism coming from me. But he's already out into the everyday world, giving, speaking to humanity, teaching humanity directly. Now, whether he's recognized or not is a whole other thing. I do think you're right in terms of the wars that are going on. I also think that the political divisions going on, especially in the United States and around the world, are concerning people enough that they're not focused on perhaps some solutions to the problems. Do you know what I mean? But in time, he'll have to speak a little bit firmer, with a little bit more sense of urgency, perhaps, or as Ben's master put it, bring his head above the horizon so people can see that it's him, or at least begin to recognize that it's him. I don't think it can go on much longer. Now, him coming back into the everyday world on July 19th, 1977, according to the Masters, is the guarantee that humanity will not destroy itself nuclearly. I have a hard time saying that word every time. But anyway, it's the guarantee that humanity will save itself. And up until that point, it was kind of touch and go whether we could do it or not. But not to worry, we're all good. Now, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't work toward peace. But as Ben's master said, without sharing, justice will never happen. And without justice for all, peace is a pipe dream, It won't be until then. And anybody that promises peace without talking about the principle of sharing has got their head up their ass, as far as I'm concerned. Not to sound crass, but it's true. You know what I mean? Maitreya says, without sharing, there will be no justice. Without justice, there will be no peace. And without peace, there will be no future. That is the most important thing. You don't have to believe anything about Maitreya being the Christ or a teacher or even being real. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? But if you take away from this information, the need, the importance of justice, the importance for peace, and perhaps start to inquire about the possibility, at least, that sharing will bring about justice and bring about peace, that is the most important thing. And if it gives you a little bit of hope, that's just the cherry on top as far as I'm concerned. And, the way I always tell people to investigate the truth that sharing will bring about justice and bring about peace is to look at the Marshall Plan. I talk about it in a lot of videos. And the Marshall Plan was it was a process, I guess, or a way of rebuilding Europe after World War II. And the United States gave excesses of the resources to Western Europe. But here's the other thing, is it wasn't just a giving. There was also a getting back. And that's the whole import of the principle of sharing. It's a lease-lend procedure. But by them giving resources to Western Europe to rebuild Western Europe. It did just that. It rebuilt Western Europe. Europe didn't fall into chaos and more war, and Europe was able to give back what it took in kind. And it created an economic boom in the United States. It created trust amongst those nations and so forth. So, according to the masters, every nation has an excess that it can give. Every nation has needs of some kind. The wealthier nations have more excesses than needs, but they still have needs from poor countries, for instance, that those poorer countries could give their excesses to the richer countries if and only if those Western nations could give some of the excesses that they have to the poorer nations. That would bring trust amongst those nations, bring about goodwill amongst those nations, and then eventually peace and eventually manifested love on planet Earth. But anyway, thanks for the comment. I always appreciate your comments, James. Thank you so much. All right, now let's see. You mentioned the masters working in the artistic field. Why would the masters concern themselves with art? Well, that's a good question. Art has to do with the soul and the expression of the soul. Now, art in and of itself, as far as we know today, there's more to art than that. Okay. In fact, Ben's Master's articles, the first one that he ever wrote was The Art of Waiting. There's actually an art to waiting, and there's a soul's approach to waiting. There's a soul's approach to everything, Now, in terms of the art of today versus the art of the future, the master Djwhal Khul put it in terms of building blocks, but I'll put it in terms of Legos. So you don't really see building blocks in toy stores or anything like that, but you do see Legos, right? So Legos now are getting pretty complex, but back when I was a kid, they were pretty simple. They were just blocks. They didn't have, you couldn't build a Millennium Falcon Lego set, It was just you build a little house or whatever like that, right? Imagine a kid in his playroom playing with Legos. That's the art of today versus the building of the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican. That's the art of the future. That's the difference between the two. Now, the reason why art is so important is because it's about, like I said, it's about the expression of the soul in whatever it is, whether it's politics, economics, teaching, some kind of medical discovery or technological advance. It would take the expression of the soul to be able to bring that about, which would make every aspect of those things, whether it's economics, politics, spirituality, meditation, it could be anything along those lines, an art form, if done properly. Now, the art of the future is about the art of people's lives and the expression of the soul in the life of the person. And the only way to bring that about is to bring about justice for everyone without exception. And when everybody's needs are taken care of, when people don't have to work so hard to eke out a living, to get enough food to eat, to have a decent place to live and those kind of things, to be able to get education, their life will be about leisure. And the masters will teach humanity how to use that time effectively and not just have it be about themselves as selfishly, but eventually to be about the expression of the soul, which is about service to humanity, about giving to humanity, about creativity and those kind of things. And that will change life on planet Earth forever. Now, art that we know today, like painting, sculpture, music, and those kind of things, you can express your soul through those things, through that form, And there have been countless number of individuals who have done that in the past. Some have done it better than others, because of who they were as a person, their spiritual status. Leonardo da Vinci would be a textbook example of somebody who was manifesting his soul through art. That's why so many people are drawn to the Mona Lisa, for instance, and how it's a subconscious magnetic quality that people have with that painting because of who painted it. I almost said Maitreya. Leonardo da Vinci was nearly a master when he painted that painting. And it's a quite simple almost dull painting if you look at it from afar. But if you get close to it, the detail of it is just amazing, right? But from far away, it doesn't have a lot of color, you know. In terms, it's color just, you know, it's not that distracting of a painting. It's very simple, right? But yet, millions upon millions of people pilgrimage to the Louvre to see this painting. Why? You know what I'm saying? It's the light coming off this painting. And Benjamin Creme was a painter throughout his life. That's how he made his living. And he had the most unique yet very wise, and he could articulate it better than anybody that I could ever think of, the quality of the art from the master painters of the Renaissance, and how they painted, even to the size of their canvases, was a direct result of who the painter was. He said some painters, being of the sixth ray of abstract idealism and devotion, which is the fanatic is found to be of that energetic quality, right? So there were a lot of painters in the Renaissance that were sixth ray painters. And he said that the sixth ray is the ray that loves to crack a nut with a sledgehammer. So they would create these huge canvases to express what could have been expressed in a very tiny canvas. But it was the energetic quality of the painter that was painting it, right? But the one painter that I've always admired, and so when Ben talked about Rembrandt, my ears always perked up because I'd always really enjoyed looking at his paintings, even before I knew anything about this. But it made it more special to me to know who he was as a very, very advanced disciple when he painted those paintings. And then some of the history behind his relationship with the masters when he was painting and so forth. And when Ben talked about Rembrandt, he said that he painted dozens of self-portraits. And they were kind of a window into the life of Rembrandt and his life, because he painted them all throughout his life, you know, from a young man all the way up to when he was, you know, an old man. And the older he got, it seems like the paintings of his face, he seemed calmer, even though his life was falling apart by all measure. You know, his wives died of disease, his kids died, you know, he was left alone. His reputation as a renowned painter vanished. He became bankrupt. He couldn't even afford his own paintings, stuff that would drive people to turmoil. You look at his paintings and he's very calm. And the other thing too that I was just, Ben said this in passing one time when he was talking about Rembrandt, is he said that Maitreya overshadowed him when he painted his self-portraits. And Maitreya painted in his eyes into the painting. So when you look at a self-portrait of Rembrandt, he was being overshadowed at the time by Maitreya at the time of the painting. And at the time that Rembrandt painted, or Maitreya painted, overshadowed him and painted in his own eyes into his painting, into Rembrandt paintings, it was believed by the masters that it would be another 1,000 years before they would be able to come back into the everyday world. So year 3000 or so, that they would be able to come back into the everyday world, that humanity would be ready for them. And that process was hastened, and the approach from these masters was hastened after World War II, because it was seen by the masters in a very real sense that if they did not come back into the everyday world far sooner than they expected, humanity would kill itself by nuclear weapons. And it was so divided, the world was so divided during the time of World War II that, you know, we could have very easily done it. And so that whole time frame was kicked into hyperdrive, and it was a lot sooner than they had expected, I guess is my point. So, but at the time that he painted, that Rembrandt was a painter, that was expected to be 3,000 years from now. But it was a part of the approach for the masters into the everyday world was through art. It was a very simple way. It was a way that probably most, I would say, everybody with the exception of Benjamin Creme would have figured out, you know what I'm saying, until the masters came into the everyday world. and Ben was able to tell everybody about it, it would have been missed by all of humanity. But it was the start of the emergence of the masters was through art. But like I said, the art of the future will be the art about people's lives and the expression of the soul in people's lives and so forth. Not necessarily painting or music in the way that we know it today, but even those forms will transform based off of the soul quality of humanity. So I can't wait to see it. Can't wait to hear the music of the future for sure. But thank you for the question. I once heard we, meaning humanity, are transitioning into another dimension. That's why things seem to be unreal. Time seems to be moving faster. What would the masters say to that? They would say that is unreal. No, they would say there's no truth to that. That we're still on the physical plane. We're not moving into another dimension and that kind of thing. And it's interesting that people have these kind of thoughts about life. They're starting to see the unreality to their own ways of living, as what I think it is. And I had put up a video not too long ago because somebody had mentioned the Matrix. And there's kind of what is the term? There are people who are talking a lot about the movie The Matrix now, that life that's actually about life, that life is, we're living in the Matrix, the world that we know is unreal and that kind of stuff. And there is a little bit of truth to that, not in terms of there's an actual Matrix, but there is an unreality to life that we're starting to realize. The things that seemed real to us aren't real anymore. The things that we held dear, that we created such an emotional attachment to, we don't anymore. But also too, the systems in place that society has created, the economic structures, the political structures are crumbling, and we're seeing that they're not doing any good for humanity, and we're left in this kind of transitional phase where we don't have the new structures in place to support humanity. So what? Is really the question. That's the $65,000 question. Well, now what? You know what I mean? Well, that's where Maitreya is going to start to show humanity the importance of starting and trying the principle of sharing. That will bring about trust amongst humanity. Right now, we don't trust anybody. We can barely trust people calling us, Eventually, it will get to the point where we don't trust anything we can see, hear, touch, or taste because of the technology that we have. Is this really somebody talking to us, or is this a computer? That kind of thing. And so it's going to get, I think, probably worse before it gets better. But trust will only take place amongst nations, amongst groups of people, amongst people itself, when all our needs are taken care of, when justice is for all. That's when we can truly trust life. And that will change everything. But for right now, what do you do? So that's why I think people are talking about things like the Matrix or moving into other dimensions. I know for myself, I used to get really excited when I would, get a gift or something like this, or Christmas came rolling around or whatever. And now it's like, okay, it's almost like any other day. You know what I mean? I don't know. Hopefully that makes sense. But anyway, I appreciate your question. Okay, miracles, are they still going on? Yes, they are. And are they being, discussed about in the media like they were from, time to time? Probably not. You know what I mean? But yeah, miracles are still going on. People are still putting up videos of on YouTube about UFO sightings. Those are one of the many signs that the masters talked about. Also, too, if you just search miracles or angel sightings or being healed by an angel, you'll see scores and scores of videos of that people have put up even recently, from being healed from anything from terminal illness to being saved by an accident, or from what they consider to be an angel, right? Now, in each case, every time somebody is truly saved or healed, it's from one of these masters. But yet, the law of recognition, we view it as angels. But angel sightings and being saved from angels was one of the many signs that Ben talked about for years. So those are still going on. I know for myself personally, I've been saved twice by Maitreya. And if I was a Christian and believed in nothing but Christian ideology, I would say an angel saved me or Jesus saved me or whatever. And there's really no difference. It doesn't matter who you attribute the miracle to. It was a miracle. I fell off a ladder, almost killed myself, landing right on my head. I mean, I fell in the direction of my the driveway. But I didn't fall feet first. I fell head first on my side. I could have killed myself. I could have been injured. I could have been paralyzed. But yet when I stopped in midair and was gently laid down on the concrete. And after I had called out to Maitreya, that's all I could. After I cussed, called out to Maitreya, I was saved, right? And when I got up, I had no abrasions, no bruises, no cuts. My clothes weren't scuffed, nothing. In fact, I actually felt better after falling onto concrete and hitting my head than I did when I climbed the ladder. So that was a miracle. And I'm not the only one that's having these. But did I report it to the local news? No, because they wouldn't have believed me. So I'm sure I'm not alone in that regard. Ben's master once said that the age of miracles has no end. So even though we're perhaps in a time where they're not discussed and talked about, they are still going on. Now, the other thing, too, that I want to say about miracles is miracles are signs of hope and evidence of hope because they give people hope. But they're also, I believe, evidence of oneness because they're happening not only to the Christians, but they're happening to people of no faith, Muslims, Jews, Hindus, and so forth. And you can do your own research and you can see that there are miracles that have happened over the years to all people of all walks of life, not just the Christians, although the Christians would love to claim that it's just for them. But there is no truth to that. It's happening everywhere. And if you look at, and you won't really hear people discuss it in that way, that they are evidence of oneness, right? People say they might be giving people hope and expectancy for the future, perhaps, but never evidence of oneness. But also, too, if you look at the problems of the world, and this is where I think it's more important right now, based on where we are, that the news media focus on the problems more so than the miracles. But the problems of the world are also, too, perhaps not evidence of hope, but they are evidence of oneness because they are affecting every single person, man, woman, and child on this planet. Doesn't matter where you live, doesn't matter what language you speak, doesn't matter what the color of your skin is, doesn't matter what you believe God to be or not to be. These problems are affecting every single person on this planet. We are all to blame for the problems that in this regard. Some more than others, and we are also the solution to those problems. Every single one of us, without exception. And it will take every single one of us, without exception, doing something about these problems. For instance, the environment, to solve the problem. And not just people who believe it and those people who don't have to do anything. It's going to have to be everybody, or we're going to not be here much longer. So those, I think, are also evidence of oneness. So I do think that we're in a time now where humanity should be focusing on the problems based on the urgency of it. And when we realize that it is evidence of oneness, we will become more of a united humanity. But I don't think that's going to happen until Maitreya starts to really get out there and people start to recognize at least the truth in what this man is saying. Maybe not that he is the Christ or the Imam Mahdi or whatever, but the truth of what Maitreya is saying and the importance of what he's saying. The importance to just share the resources in the world. That will bring about goodwill amongst the nations so that the nations can come together and tackle the problems of the environment. Up until that point, competition, greed, fear, mistrust, we're not going to do anything. We can't do anything separate. Does that make sense? So, that's where I think, if you focus on and maybe perhaps don't get so down about the problems in the world, and look at it more from a hopeful standpoint, there is a lot of hope even in the problems of the world. Perhaps I think, dare I say, that the problems of the world will be the greatest teacher for humanity, bringing out and calling forth the oneness in humanity in a way that we couldn't have done had we not been facing our own destruction, our own demise. Does that make sense? But anyway, I love you guys. Thank you so much for the questions and the comments. Keep them coming. I'll keep putting the videos up. You guys have a great day. Talk to you soon. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.